You know, there was a time when sports in Orlando was about going to the wrestling matches at the old Armory or some alphabet football league playing in the Citrus Bowl until this man came along and said, maybe, just maybe, the NBA could work in Orlando. We would like to give our Mikey Lifetime Achievement Award to Pat Williams, the man who believed magic could be made in Orlando, the founding father of the Orlando Magic, Pat Williams. Let's bring Pat up right now. Pat, thanks so much for what you have meant to sports in this city. Thank you for bringing professional sports here, you and Jimmy Hewitt. We appreciate all you've done.
Well, it's hard to believe, Mikey, but 26 years ago, this month, is when it all started. We had a press conference downtown announcing that we were going to go for an NBA franchise. And I think a lot of people thought, what does that mean? You know, what is the NBA and, you know, what's going to happen? But amazingly enough, 10 months later from that start, the NBA granted us a team to start play 2.5 years later. It was a special time, and I look back upon that with warm memories now. Lots of gut-wrenching stuff we went through, lots of ups and downs, lots of rumors, you know, but it happened, and hard to believe, but we're going to be getting ready for, what, our 24th season this fall. So, wow, where's the time gone?
Pat, I saw the other day you are celebrating your 50th year in professional sports. What was your first job?
Well, I graduated from Wake Forest. I was a catcher on the baseball team. And in June of '62, 50 years ago this month, I really wanted to play professional baseball in the worst way, which I ended up doing, by the way, Mike. Mm-hmm. But in the one-club bidding, the Phillies won out, gave me a $500 bonus, $400 a month, and sent me to Miami, Florida, which was then a farm club of theirs in the Florida State League. Bob Carpenter, the owner of the Phillies, before I left, said one thing to me. He said, keep your eyes and ears open on and off the field. What I didn't know was that Wes Livengood, the Phillies scout in North Carolina, had turned in a report on me that said, good receiver, throws okay, doesn't run well, hits a little bit, has a future in the front office, wrote Wes. So I really was learning both ends, on the playing field and in the front office, from a general manager there, Bill Durney, who ran the club, who had been a former executive with Bill Veeck, which opened the door for me to build a relationship with Bill Veeck, which I treasure to this day. So I had lots of good people who were pouring their wisdom into me way back in those early days. But I played 2 years in the Florida State League, hit .295 as a backup catcher my first year and about .204 the second. The only claim to fame I had as a pro athlete, Ferguson Jenkins, 18 years old, had arrived the same week I did. So I got to catch him for 2 years. Fergie lost one game, I think, that first year, and some writer said, who's the toughest man for you to pitch to in the Florida State League? He said, my catcher, Williams. So the Phillies threw a coat and tie in my direction pretty quickly, Mike, and a front office career was launched.
Pat, can you, 26 years ago when the Magic were sort of born, can you recount the meeting with you and Jimmy Hewitt, the Orlando businessman, that made you think that the NBA could come here?
I had met Jimmy prior. I was down for a speaking engagement, Mike, from Philadelphia. I was the GM of the 76ers. Came down in early September of 1985. And through a mutual friend, John Tolson, who was a pastor at First Presbyterian Church, you know, I re-engaged with Jimmy. And then at the end of that speaking gig, they said, let us drive you to the airport. So we're driving to the airport, and I just threw out a question. I said, would pro basketball ever go in Florida? And where would you put the team, Miami or Tampa? And these two guys, these two Orlandoids, just turned on me. I mean, it's a wonder they didn't run off the highway. No, you'd put it in neither place. The future of Florida is here in Orlando, and you know, boy, as I got out to get on the plane to fly back to Philly, I said, well, if you believe that, you might want to track down David Stern, you know, and just check it out. There's some rumors flying. and thought no more about it, Mike. The next week, my phone rang. It was Jimmy Hewitt. Bubba, he said, we got an appointment with David Stern. We're going to New York. And sure enough, off they go to meet with David Stern, just to talk privately. And yes, there was some consideration about adding more teams, but nothing specific. And then I kept talking to Jimmy through that winter, the 85-86 winter. And then finally in April, Jimmy had put ownership together and talked to the mayor about getting a building moving faster. And Jimmy called me in the late spring of 86. He said, Bubba, he said, we've gone as far with this as we can go. He said, if you'll come down and head it up, he said, we'll go forward. He said, if not, we're going to drop it. So Jimmy basically said, you got a decision to make. Leave Philadelphia. And we had just won the lottery, Mike, the second lottery. We won that one. And
you were good with ping pong balls even back then?
Well, they even in those days they had cards.
Oh, okay.
They'd pull out of these turning devices, and so I had a decision to make: leave Philadelphia, leave my roots. I've been there 12 years. That was my home turf, and come down here and take a flyer. And I did. I gathered the family, and we decided to come. And it was a huge leap out of the airplane with the parachute unpulled at that point, and the rest is history. So it obviously was the right decision for me. It was a good decision, and as time goes on, those early days mean more to me than ever before.
Pat, I have to ask you, big news in Orlando yesterday. The Magic hire a new GM, 30-year-old Rob Hennigan. He's a young guy. What are your thoughts on the hire?
Well, I think Alex Martins, who had the responsibility of screening through all of these candidates, did a very thorough job. He didn't rush. Took about a month to really get to know all the potential candidates, and then decided that this is the right guy. The DeVos family supported that. From all reports, he's an impressive young man. Youth, I think, can be, you want experience, but you also want talent. I remember Sparky Anderson years ago said, I'll take talent over experience. He said, by the time they get the experience, the talent's gone. So this is obviously a young guy on a fast track. He's had good training in San Antonio and Oklahoma City. And, there's something to say these days. John Daniels with the Rangers was 28, and Theo was 28, and, baseball has gone that route. Basketball certainly has with the Sam Presties of the world. So I think if a young guy has it, turn him loose, let him go. I chuckled this morning when I saw 30. It was 43 years ago this summer that the Bulls hired me as their GM. I was 29. And age is not an issue if the young man is good, and all reports on him are outstanding. So as a community, we'll get to meet him today at a press conference and then a staff meeting later this afternoon, and all reports are very positive. So now he's got a ton of work to do. We got to get a coach hired, and the draft's coming up in a week, and free agency starts, and then the whole Dwight Howard thing. So you talk about a GM who has to hit the ground running. He's got a platter full.
As a community, Pat Williams, we would like to thank you for all you've done for sports in this community. You are the founding father. You are the guy who believed that magic could be made here in Orlando. Pat Williams, the winner of the Mikey for Lifetime Achievement.
Thank you, Mikey. Go.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Mikey.
And that will...